light the Panchati. Thank you, everyone. It's my proud privilege to formally welcome our esteemed chief guest, Professor P.K. Ahluwalia, former Professor, Department of Physics, HPU, currently President, Indian Association of Physics Teachers, who could make it convenient to preside over this program. Dr. Ahluwalia held various positions in different capacities, to name a few: Coordinator UGC SAP HPU, Member HP State Higher Education Council, Coordinator UGC Nodal Center for Applied Physics, Maths and Commerce, Dean Planning and Teachers Matters, HPU, Director, University Institute of Information Technology, Chairperson, Board of Studies, both UG and PG, Member, Academic Council, HPU, and the list is endless. Professor Ahluwalia has taught in St.Bede's College from 1980 to 1987, and then joined Himachal Pradesh University, Department of Physics. Sir has vast experience in research work, and his main areas being condensed matter and physics education research. He has guided 16 PhD students, 34 MPhil students, published a number of research papers in international and national journals of great repute. Professor Ahluwalia has been conferred with a number of awards for his academic achievements and research work. He has the credit of taking a number of initiatives in academics in the university campus, like implementing campus-wide optical fiber network. Also, he has been the director of IQAC. He is the first one to start with the database design for computerization of HPU. He has a number of varied interests also, like radio featuring, development of spoken tutorials, community service, sketching and drawing, etc. So this is really encouraging. Sir is a great achiever in all respects, and his contribution in academics, research and encouraging young minds is marvelous. Sir, you are always a source of inspiration to all of us. I welcome you, sir. Now may I request Dr. Sapna Sharma to felicitate our esteemed chief guest, Professor Ahluwalia, as a token of gratitude and appreciation. also request Mme. Sapna to felicitate Professor Neeraj Sharma, guest of honor on this occasion, as a token of our gratitude. Thank you, Dr. Sapna. I take the opportunity to welcome Professor Neeraj Sharma, guest of honor, former Professor, Department of Chemistry, Himachal Pradesh University. Professor Neeraj is currently convener, Indian Science Congress Association, Shimla chapter, and is associated and actively involved in various programs with an aim to promote science at school and college level. With your support, ma'am, St.Bede has been able to organize various activities from time to time related to science. A warm welcome to Dr. Hemant Kumar, Principal, Government Degree College, Saraha, District Sirmaur, Dr. Arun Kumar, Assistant Professor, Government College, Bilaspur. And they are the resource person for our program. A hearty welcome to the faculty members and student participants of nearby colleges. To name the colleges, RKMV Shimla, Center of Excellence Sanjoli, Government Degree College Thiok, Rajiv Gandhi Government Degree College, Kotshera, Shulani Institute of Life Sciences and Business Studies. Welcome to all others present here. Now I invite Professor Ahluwalia to give the inaugural address and continue with the first session. Please, sir.
A very good morning. Respected Professor Neeraj Sharma, Professor K.K. Sharma ji, officiating Principal Professor Sapna Sharma ji, my very dear friend Principal Hemant ji, and my very good colleague and collaborator Dr. Arun Sharma ji, my worthy colleagues from the colleges and the institutes around, faculty members, St.Bede, students who have come from other colleges, and the students of St.Bede. And I have a very young friend also, Aniket, present here in this audience, who has come all the way from Bilaspur to attend this program. I am very happy to be with all of you. Today is a very special day, and this special day is to commemorate the inspiration and the life of Sir C.V. Raman. He is one name who is known to everybody in the country. And also he is an internationally acclaimed scientist whose Raman effect has many resurrections in the past almost 100 years. Why I am saying this? There are many discoveries which happen, but maybe after 10, 20 years they die off and the enthusiasm is lost. But in the case of Raman effect, what we have found, that from time to time, it has given new insights and new ideas to do research in not only physics, but in many areas of science. Whether it is medicine, whether it is chemistry, whether it is biology, biotechnology, engineering, you name any discipline, and you will find that the Raman effect will be used in one way or the other. One can't imagine that he discovered with his students are Christian, an effect which was done with an apparatus which cost just 300 rupees and was given to him as a grant by Birdlas. And when he had applied for that grant, he had mentioned that if you will give me this equipment, I will win a Nobel Prize for the country. Can you imagine the kind of confidence which Sir C.V. Raman had for his way of working? He was an expert in many things, in fact. One of the earliest influences which he had was because of the love for music, which he in fact got from his parents, and later his wife was his inspiration. And he studied in great depth Indian musical instruments, veena, sitar, percussion instruments like mridang, dholak, and many such instruments. And he was considered a world authority on musical instruments and their physics. Very few people actually know about this. People know always that, oh, he was one who really got a Nobel Prize for Raman effect. But he was invited by Encyclopedia Britannica for write an article on the musical instruments of India and their science. So this is how he started. And one of the earliest papers which he wrote at the age of 19, I think many of you sitting here are in that age group, was entitled Iktara. So he studied the physics of Iktara with the help of that enthusiasm, which was very, very rare. And it is very difficult to imagine that for the first 10 years of his scientific career, he was doing this as a part-time job. He will finish his job in the Accountant Journal's office in Calcutta, and in the mornings and evenings he will come and spend time for doing research on musical instruments at Indian Association for Cultivation of Science. I think that is the kind of inspiration which is needed today by our young minds. The kind of minds which I am seeing in front of me sitting in this auditorium. He was a great, what you may call, communicator of science. When I was coming, I really got late. I am very sorry for that also. But I really listened to one of his talks on, which was actually broadcast on All India Radio, and it has been again recently brought on the YouTube also, the colors of flowers and the physics of those. And he was talking about some very interesting trees and the flowers which they give, like Pride of India, Zacaranda, Rose, and so on. It was, I think, a talk which I enjoyed. I didn't really feel like that I'm getting late to reach St.Bede. It really kept me occupied and didn't let me panic for the delay which the traffic jam was causing. So dear students, don't forget this National Science Day. He was knowing that he is going to get a Nobel Prize. He made sure that the moment he discovered something new, he published it in the newspapers. He was very clever in that way. He sent a telegram also to Nature that I have discovered this new thing. And then he wrote a letter which was published in Nature, because you know the time stamp is very important when his discovery made. If somebody else comes forward before you, then your discovery has no meaning. And I think he was a great votary of doing research even at the undergraduate level. He did his research in the beginning when he was just a postgraduate student in Chennai. or what we used to call Madras, in the Presidency College there. So I think he's an inspiration, and it is worth celebrating his discovery and his life whenever we get an opportunity. You will never, feel tired of listening about his adventures with nature. He was such a personality. And he didn't, leave his Indianness even when he became a world celebrity. If you have to see photograph of Sir C.V. Raman, you will very rarely find him without his turban. That was the kind of love he had for his own culture. And if you ever see his photograph without a turban, you will find he kept what is known as वो पंडित जी की होती है ना, क्या कहते हैं उसको, बोधी बोल देते हैं हम कई बार ना, वो नजर आएगी आपको. तो ऐसे थे हमारे C.V. रमन. मेरे को लगता है आज उनके बारे में बात करके आपके साथ एक अजीब आनंद की अनुभूति हो रही है. आपको भी हो रही होगी जरूर. And I'm looking forward to this very interesting program which is going to be held today. I think my slides are there, and I don't know who is going to run these slides, or will I get it on my table here? No, I'll not get it. All right, don't worry about that. So I'll keep on, telling you when to say go ahead, okay? So I have chosen today a very interesting talk. And let me tell you that this program is organized in collaboration with Indian Science Congress Association, and I'm very glad to tell you that Professor Neeraj Sharma is the chairperson of the chapter in Himachal Pradesh. And ever since she has become president of this chapter in Himachal Pradesh, she has made sure that she reaches out to students in schools, colleges and universities. For the last almost 5 years I am seeing tirelessly she is working, and I think she has given a new dimension to science communication in Himachal Pradesh itself. That's a very, very big thing, and ma'am, we are grateful to you for this kind of an effort which you have made. I am also glad to tell you one thing more, and that is that we are also organizing this on behalf of Indian Association of Physics Teachers. Now, what can an association of physics teachers do? They can only try to link with the students. If they are able to link with the students, I think teachers will feel happy. You take away the students from my life, and my life becomes dull and boring. The moment students come in my life as a teacher, I think I feel enthused, enthusiastic. I get a lot of strength back in my voice also. And I feel that I am with a very, very inspiring lot. You may be finding it very strange when I am using these words, because it is your inspiration and the students' inspiration which have created people like Sir C.V. Raman. Students have a very interesting habit, and that is that they are inquisitive and they don't mind asking questions also. And when a question is thrown at a teacher, he is forced to not only think about it, but try very hard to give an answer to the question to his student. So I think that is a very interesting relationship which is there between a student and a teacher. And IAPT is an organization which is working for the last 40 years in achieving this kind of a goal. And we have in the country about 22 regional councils with 5 sub-regional councils. We are spread all over the country, and I have been given this opportunity last year to serve this community and ultimately the students. So I'm very happy with that also. So this program is also partly organized with the help of Indian Association of Physics Teachers. The title of today's talk gels very well with the theme of this convention. I hope you have gone through that heading. What is the theme of this convention? Can anybody tell me that? What is the theme of the convention or this program today? People have come from all corners, so they must have gone through the theme itself. And what has that to do with this particular talk? You know, teachers have a very bad habit. They start asking questions. But we can't help that. Anybody, please raise your hand and say, sir, I'll tell you. Sir is saying something. Can you see this? So what is written there? National Science Day 2023, Discoveries in Science and Sustainable Development. And then when you will look at this title, you will find what has this to do with sustainable development itself. That's a very interesting question to pose. Cyclotron, something which we study in class 12, has something to do with sustainable development? And an answer is yes. It has really contributed a lot in the development of what you call sustaining life on Earth. You might have heard about discovery of God's particle, which is technically known as Higgs boson. That was a result of something which happened because of the device which we are calling as cyclotron. And in this first slide, I hope you are able to see a stamp also. This stamp is showing us one of the first cyclotrons which was raised on the campus of a university as a result of a donation. You know, these days we think of our institutions, we talk about alumni associations, and we say that, okay, please come and donate for some activities which we can conduct in our institutions. Can you imagine that this was the kind of situation which happened for the bringing of this cyclotron on the campus of Punjab University in the physics department. And it was celebrated as a landmark for science research in the country itself, particularly nuclear physics. Can we go to the next slide, please? There is another term in this which is written as big science. What is big science? Big science, you will see, many logos here which I have really thrown. One is of that lab, which is actually a European lab for the study of nuclear physics, nuclear studies we do, CERN. Then we have another very interesting logo written on that is ITER, which is actually a program which is for producing thermonuclear energy, the way sun produces energy on Earth itself at very, very high temperatures, millions and millions of the temperature which we encounter on the sun itself. It is a project which is working on fusion energy. Then we also find that we have another very interesting logo of LIGO. This is actually a project to discover what we call gravitational waves. They have already been discovered, but there is a proposal to start the centers to detect these waves in at least 3 corners of the world. And India has been chosen for that particular program also. It's called LIGO. It is basically Laser Interferometry Gravitational Wave Observatory. And then we can also see another very interesting image, which is for Hubble telescope. I hope you know the name of Hubble. He was an astronomer. In his name, a telescope was sent to probe the extraterrestrial things in the universe. So this is a kind of a plan which is not on a very small scale, but it is at a very, very big scale. Lately, you know, last year in 2023, we heard that a Nobel Prize has been given for quantum physics, particularly for quantum teleportation and quantum entanglement. And Government of India has come out with a very special program for that kind of research worth 8,000 crores. You can imagine how much big investment we are making into these kinds of projects. Also, when we look at COVID-19, the way we handled it scientifically, it would not have been possible unless we had imagined about big science. Now, what is the definition of it? The definition of this is very simple, and we must really appreciate it. When we talk about big science, we are talking of a discovery which has a potential of new discoveries and benefits to the mankind. I would like to underline this, benefits to the mankind. Maybe many of you who are sitting here must be knowing that Nobel Prize was instituted by Alfred Nobel to give those kinds of discoveries a kind of a prize, and the people who really did that, which will help or benefit mankind. That's a very, very underlining thing there. So whenever the Alfred Nobel Committee has to decide whether this discovery deserves a Nobel Prize or not, they always look at that angle. So imagine Raman effect, for example. Has that qualified with that kind of spirit or not? Answer is a big yes. But when we are talking about this big science, it cannot be done in small groups. It cannot be done like the way Raman did it. Raman had what? He was there, his student was there, they had a small apparatus. The source of light was also drawn from the sun, which is coming from a window. Can you imagine that? And today we have very intense sources of light, lasers for example, which really made all those things look very easy. And that is why they opened many other doors of doing research in that particular area. So here we require big teams of scientists and technologists. You know, many a times you will notice there are certain discoveries which do not happen if the right kind of technology is not available. If the technology of the right kind is available to us, then and only then we can discover that. Otherwise, Cyclotron is one such discovery or invention, you may call it, which was responsible for creating this kind of a idea that you cannot really imagine work on these machines without having a team, without having a team spirit, without having technologists backing you for running those kinds of machines itself. So this is very, very important when we talk of big science, and it requires huge investment. I have given you a very simple number, 8,000 crores. Many a times, you know, when we have talked about certain big investments in science in our country, people raised eyebrows. For example, in the case of space technology, people were saying India doesn't need this kind of technology. But visionaries of that time like Vikram Sarabhai, Homi Jahangir Bhava, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, they were very clear that people will realize that how important it is. Can you imagine without space ships and the satellites which India has actually situated around Earth in the geostationary orbits, we would have been having the kind of communication which we are having today? No. And these are the big science projects which really not only create something which is designated to them or given to them as a task, but very many technologies come as a result of those kinds of efforts. I'll give you one example for that also. CERN is a place where people do research in nuclear physics. But CERN is also a place where very many people are together to think about ideas. And one of the ideas which has emerged from that CERN lab is the idea of World Wide Web. World Wide Web, WW which we call today, would not have been there had that idea not emerged from that particular lab itself. And when the person who created that idea, Tim Berners-Lee, was asked that, for you, what is this World Wide Web? He said, for me, it is not just a network of computers. For me, it is a network of people. And I think we are a witness to that. We are very lucky that we are a witness to this kind of a thing, which happened as a small idea in that big, big lab. So these are some of the things which happened there. Here, I am actually talking about a person who coined this term big science. His name was Albin Weinberg. And what he said about 20th century, we are in 21st century, imagine where we have reached. When history looks at the 20th century, she will see science and technology as its theme. She will find in the monuments of big science the huge rockets, the high energy accelerators, high flux research reactors, symbols of our time just as surely as she finds in Notre Dame of the Middle Ages. So somebody will ask, what was so very special about 20th century? So they will talk about something as big as huge rockets. Man landed on the moon because of those only. It's unimaginable. And this is what is the essence of big science. Next, please. How we actually go from small to big science. That's also a very interesting story. You know, in the beginning of the 20th century, what started happening? We started understanding this fact that what makes matter? What constitutes matter? And we found that matter has got an electron and some positive charge, which is the basic constituent of matter. And people have been giving it a name called an atom. But that was not the end of the story. People started thinking that if we have found an electron and a positive charge, so we can understand that why atom is neutral. But let us probe further. So when J.J. Thomson gave his model of plum pudding of the atom, one of his students, Ernest Rutherford, whose picture on a stamp you are seeing, he went to him and said, I must go and check your model experimentally. Because you know, in science, we don't accept anything unless we have some kind of an evidence. Big debates, big discussions, big papers you may write, but if they do not really corroborate what experiments are saying, they are of no use to us. We must not forget that. And he did, a very interesting experiment where he took a gold foil and bombarded positively charged particles. Fortunately, we had the sources of such positively charged particles available to us. We in fact never called those as particles, we called those as alpha rays to begin with, but they were ultimately found to be nothing but helium nuclei, positively charged, and they were hitting this gold foil, which was very, very thin. You know, gold has a property that you can really make it into a very, very thin sheet. Bark जिसको बोलते हैं, bark भी बनाते हैं इससे. And what he found to his surprise was this, that atom was lot of empty space with a very tiny portion which most of its mass was sitting and a very tiny electron going around it. That was what was the atom. And you know, people wanted to understand that what does it mean? And he tried to explain that this means that if you have a blotting paper in your hand and if you throw a bullet strikes the blotting paper and comes back to you. That is the kind of situation which I am seeing in this particular experiment. In fact, Ernest Rutherford is the father of nuclear physics. This is where he coined the term nucleus and people started talking about nuclear physics itself. So this was one part of his contribution. The second part of his contribution was much more exciting, but he lost trail of that in fact. And how did he do this research? Even in our physics department at Himachal Pradesh University, we have a small equipment where we do the study of Rutherford scattering. A very standard thing which we try to teach students at undergraduate level. We derive the scattering cross-section of scattering of an alpha particle by the nucleus. And he had just one undergraduate student and one postdoc working with him, just two students, small science happening. And he had a grant of just 70 pounds, imagine 70 pounds. If you want to buy a book on the internet today, you know, on some international platform, people will ask for 100 pounds immediately. Just for 70 pounds he did this experiment. And one of the most expensive things which was used in this experiment was the source of alpha particles, which was radium. And that was actually given to him, that source, as a loan from Austrian Academy of Sciences. So, you know, see how small things people are trying to do. I was telling you about how Raman started doing his work itself. The other thing which I am telling you he lost track of was the fact that he was one of the first persons to cause a nuclear reaction. That was the beginning of what you call radiochemistry itself. And he was the one who actually completed a kind of a dream of people before him, and those were the people who were called alchemists. Alchemists are the person who had just one mission: how to convert base metals into gold. So like for example, if I have iron, can I convert that into gold? Can I convert atom of iron into atom of gold? That was the question which people were having, and they wanted to do that already. But here was a person who hit nuclear photon nuclei with an alpha particle and converted into a new nuclei. That is the alchemist's dream. Not necessarily in terms of gold, and a proton was also emitted in this process. But the signatures of proton he was able to really take care of, but he was not able to see that oxygen-17 isotope has also been produced in that particular nuclear reaction itself. And it took a lot of time before Madame Curie's daughter Juliette Curie came on the scene and caused one of the first known artificial transmutations. And it was then it was realized that, oh, when Ernest Rutherford was talking about a proton being emitted, it is exactly this which was happening. An artificial transmutation was taking place. Now you will ask me this question, that what has this story of yours to do with cyclotron? All these are very, very much interconnected. Because once we realized that we want to study a nucleus, how to study that? It is like this. आपके साथ पास में एक अखरोट है, आप देखना चाहते हो उसके अंदर क्या है, आप क्या करोगे? आप एक हथौड़ी लेकर के उसको तोड़ने की कोशिश करोगे. You would like to smash it. So people started imagining, can I have something which can smash nuclei, and maybe something will spill out of it and we will know what is there inside. That was the kind of story which was going on. And mind it, I am again coming back to the same question. And that question is that Rutherford was doing small science. The apparatus to do this reaction was just that kind of an apparatus which you can see on the corner of the screen. He could hold that in his hand. And now when I am talking about discovering a Higgs boson, you require a machine, imagine that, which has a ring, which has a radius of 27 kilometers. Because the idea is this, that if you want to probe more and more and more with higher and higher resolution, you should have particles with higher and higher energy. So when we are talking of these kinds of reactions, energies are of the order of say kilo electron volts, not more than that. But when we are talking about that CERN, we are talking of energies of the order of 7 trillion electron volts. Try to imagine that how this could have been possible. But it was still what we call small science and not big science. Let's go to the next one. Just for a minute. Let's go back. I have missed one. There is one small quotation by E. Rutherford on top, or Miss Rutherford. It says, when we do not have money, what we need to do? We need to think. So more stress is on thinking, and that gives you new ideas. Raman didn't have much money. Rutherford also didn't have much money. And when first cyclotron was built, it was done with the help of just $25. Imagine. And when I am talking of CERN as a machine, a single government cannot imagine to build that. The kind of money is required for raising such facilities. So they are always, multi-governmental agencies which come forward, collaborations happen, teams are formed in different countries to do that kind of things. Next, please. Yeah. So, this is a very interesting picture. And I am showing you the comparison here. Rutherford is holding that apparatus which I showed you in the last diagram, which was like a, a small sketch of the whole apparatus. Okay. And now try to see that huge cyclotron, huge magnets around, and the team of people which are standing below that, looking like dwarfs. If you have heard about the story of the Gleaver, I think I am remembering that story of dwarfs and the Gleaver. Okay, you will see that kind of a picture here. This is a very interesting part of it. And going from suddenly small science to big science. Next, please. Now comes the hero of this today's lecture, and his name is Ernest Lawrence. And the physics of cyclotron is very, very simple. And he has given a very interesting Nobel lecture when he has given a Nobel Prize. I think everybody who is sitting here should go, click on the website of Nobel Academy and read this lecture. Plain English, beautiful black and white pictures in that, no formality. I think if you are scared of formulae, you must read this lecture itself. And there he mentions something very interesting which I will read for you. The development of cyclotron was begun more than 20 years ago. He was given actually a Nobel Prize in 1939. So that means in 1919, people had started working on a cyclotron. And perhaps it is appropriate on this occasion to give something of an historical account. The story goes back to 1928, when I had the good fortune of becoming a member of the faculty of University of California. Now there is a very interesting example which he is sharing कि लोग ना रिसर्च कैसे शुरू करते हैं, उनको आइडियाज कैसे आते हैं रिसर्च करने के लिए, वो प्रॉब्लम्स कैसे चूज करते हैं. आप बोलते हो ना कि मुझे रिसर्च करनी है तो आपको प्रॉब्लम ढूंढनी पड़ती है. And here is a person who is telling that how I picked up that problem. At that time it seemed opportune to review my plan for research to see whether I might not profitably go into nuclear research. ये नई फील्ड थी. रदरफोर्ड ने धमाका मचाया हुआ था दुनिया भर में न्यूक्लियर रिसर्च स्टार्ट करके. For the pioneer work of Rutherford and his school had clearly indicated that the next great frontier for the experimental physicists was surely the atomic nucleus. न्यूक्लियस कितना बड़ा है इसका मैं आपको ना अंदाज देना चाहता हूँ. Imagine Earth. Inflate nucleus to the size of the Earth. You will find the nucleus is of the size of a football. So you are trying to search for a football on whole of the Earth, and you want to peep inside that. It was first to find out. It was so difficult. It was like जैसे एक भूसे के ढेर में सुई खो गई हो ना, वैसी बात हो गई थी. And what is the size of the electron? Size of the electron was that of a ping pong ball, table tennis ball. So people had started, getting excited about what Rutherford had discussed. Now this is the kind of excitement which happens whenever new things happen in science. They start looking for those kinds of things. Next please. And it seemed equally obvious also at that time that a prerequisite to successful experimental attack on the nucleus was the development of means of accelerating charged particle to high velocity. मैंने अभी कहा ना आपको अखरोट को तोड़ना है तो आपको हथौड़ी उठानी पड़ती है. आपने न्यूक्लियस को तोड़ना है तो आपको कोई एक बुलेट चाहिए. But bullet has to be so much energetic. It should have so much energy that it should be able to, spill out something from the nucleus itself. And he mentions that very nicely in it. Accelerating charged particles to high velocities to energies measured in millions of electron volts. अब देखिए ये तो अभी 39 में बैठ करके मिलियन इलेक्ट्रॉन वोल्ट्स की बात सोच रहा था, जबकि सर्न वालों ने आज उसको 7 ट्रिलियन इलेक्ट्रॉन वोल्ट तक अचीव करा हुआ है. I devoted considerable time and thought to the technical problem of ways and means of reaching millions of electron volts in the laboratory. अब देखिए क्या है, यहाँ पर वो सोच रहा है कि ये प्रॉब्लम है तो अच्छी, पर इसके लिए क्या करना पड़ेगा, टेक्निकली मुझे क्या करना पड़ेगा और उसको मैं कैसे अचीव करूँगा. So he had a very typical problem. How to produce high voltages of the order of millions of volts, trillions of volts. Because the idea is very simple. I think most of the people who are sitting here are science students. If you are not science student, don't worry. It's not very difficult to understand. If we take an electron and let it go through a potential difference of 1 volt, it acquires an energy of what we call 1 electron volt. So if you want to get million electron volt energy with an electron, what you have to do is, you will have to let it pass through a potential difference of 1 million volts. So you should have a kind of an instrument with the help of which you should be able to produce million volts. And this is not a new problem. This problem was encountered when people were trying to discover even an electron. अगर आपने J.J. Thomson का नाम सुना हुआ है, he had an apparatus. And when he was able to discover that electron, before him, the technology of producing high voltages was already there in the form of what we call an induction coil in the physics labs. Maybe if you go to the physics department, I have worked here, so I know that there is an induction coil in this lab also, and you can produce. Now imagine, what can this million volt do? Have you ever seen lightning? Lightning, when it happens, the potential differences are of very, very high voltage. And in between those potentials, the medium breaks down. It means that when that kind of voltage is applied, you see that in the medium ionization takes place and a blue hue is created, which is what you call as the lightning. And it can burn anybody instantaneously. We know that that happens when lightning strikes on trees and on even buildings. Buildings can crack as a result of that. Thanks to Benjamin Franklin, he had found a way out to take care of that in terms of a very simple device. शिव जी का त्रिशूल लगा दो, उसको अर्थ कर दो, और आपका lightning conductor तैयार हो गया. So that was the thing which happened. So he was worried about that high voltages. Second was the development of accelerating tubes. जैसे मैंने कहा ना, 1 वोल्ट के पोटेंशियल में से आप एक्सेलरेट करोगे तो 1 इलेक्ट्रॉन वोल्ट की एनर्जी मिल जाएगी. तो ऐसे मिलियन वोल्ट्स करने के लिए मुझे वो ट्यूब्स चाहिए जिनमें मैं उसको क्रॉस करूं और मेरे पास उतने वोल्ट की एनर्जी वाला पार्टिकल एक्सेलरेट होकर के बाहर निकल जाए. ये 2 सिंपल चीजें हैं जो की जा सकती हैं. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. So, the idea was very simple. And before Lawrence, people had tried these ideas. अगर आप इन पिक्चर्स को ध्यान से देख रहे हो, this is a picture which was given by Lawrence in his Nobel lecture, जिसपे उन्होंने बताया कि हम क्या करेंगे, ट्यूब्स लेंगे, ट्यूब्स को हम ना पॉजिटिव पोटेंशियल पे रखेंगे और एक ट्यूब से दूसरे ट्यूब में जाकर के जब वो पार्टिकल जाएगा तो एक्सेलरेट होकर के बाहर निकलेगा. Lawrence, sitting in his lab, tried to calculate that if I have to have 1 million electron volts, so how long this tube would be. And he arrived at a conclusion कि मेरी लैब की जितनी लंबाई है उससे तो कुछ गुजारा होने वाला नहीं है, तो मैं कैसे बनाऊं, कैसे उसको मैं इतने इलेक्ट्रॉन वोल्ट तक ले जाने की कोशिश करूं. But this was the beginning of an idea which was given by Gustav Ising, and it was demonstrated that such kind of a device is the one in which we let the particles go along a line and keep it focused in that line so that it doesn't get what you call diffused in the form of a beam, and go along a straight path. And that is why such devices are known as the linear accelerators. Linear accelerator, LINAC भी बोलते हैं इसमें, LINAC, LINAC. And if you see that small animation there, you can see कि ये जो एक ऊपर wave है वो क्या बता रही है आपको, that on these tubes sometimes voltage is becoming positive, sometimes it is becoming negative. When it is becoming positive, electron goes through it, gets accelerated, and this process continues. Now this is a very interesting idea of using what we call alternating voltages to achieve acceleration. This was the best part of the story, because this was borrowed by Lawrence also when he wanted to make his cyclotron. Next please. So the physics of the cyclotron is very, very easy. He said, आपने ना देखा होगा कभी मंदिर में जाओ ना आप, किसी में जहाँ पे बहुत भगत पहुँचते हैं और बड़ी बड़ी भीड़ हो जाती है, तो कितनी लंबी लाइन लगाएंगे, सीधी लाइन लगाने लगेंगे तो St. Bede से, imagine St. Bede is a temple, okay, and many people want to come here, and that is a fact also, very many people want to come here. If you say now that you can come to St. Bede, you will find that there will be a queue, and that queue can go right up to maybe Summerhill. But then you say, okay, we can't afford that big a line, so what we will do? We will, try to have a kind of a pattern in which we will start circulating people around only. कभी आप कोई बड़े मंदिर में जाओ तो उन्होंने ना वो रस्सियां लगा करके वहीं से वहीं घुमाते रहते हैं लोगों को, घंटे के बाद बारी आती है. तो उसने भी ये सोचा कुछ ऐसा अगर मैं कर सकूं कि मैं अगर इस इलेक्ट्रॉन को घुमाऊं तो छोटी जैसी जगह में ही शायद मैं ये बिलियन इलेक्ट्रॉन वोल्ट्स अचीव कर सकता हूँ. What a wonderful idea it was. And he had another idea. ये जो Q into E है first term, ये जो formula है, this is called a formula for the Lorentz force. So when you subject a charged particle to electric field and magnetic field, so electric field accelerates it. But what magnetic field does is, it is not able to accelerate it. It only turns it. उसकी जो direction है, उसको change करता है. And so this Q V cross P, in which V is the velocity and V is the strength of the magnetic field, actually causes it to turn. और उसने ये पता लगाने की कोशिश की that this frequency to turn, which we call as cyclotron frequency, depends on what? So he did a small calculation and he arrived at a formula that this frequency depends only on the charge on the particle, frequency, this magnetic field strength, and this what you call, I think there is a small thing in this. Actually this has to be mass, not omega, mass. तो अगर आपके पास एक पार्टिकल है, उसका चार्ज है, उसके ऊपर आपने मैग्नेटिक फील्ड लगाई, ये इन तीन चीजों के ऊपर डिपेंड करेगा और किसी चीज पे डिपेंड नहीं करेगा. अगर रेडियस बड़ा भी होता चला जाएगा तो ये एंगुलर फ्रीक्वेंसी आपको चेंज करने की जरूरत नहीं है. So that was a very interesting conclusion, and this led to a very interesting path which I have shown on top. This is known as Fermat's spiral. और इसका फॉर्मूला बड़ा सिंपल है. अगर आप चाहो स्प्रेडशीट पे बैठ करके वो फॉर्मूला लिख करके स्पाइरल ड्रॉ भी कर सकते हो. So there is a problem which one can do. Maybe in undergraduate studies you can do the theory of a cyclotron, where you can arrive at that how such a Fermat spiral is produced when a particle gets accelerated in this. Now what then he thought was that can we really during its travel do something that after half the path we accelerate it, let it go through once again, and when he comes back to the middle we again accelerate it, and we keep on doing it. And as the path actually becomes equal to where we want to trap this particle which has been accelerated, we can extract it and make it hit something which we want to smash. So that was the simple idea which was there in this case. So what is the apparatus required here? One is, you can see magnets. Then you want to apply an electric field and they are mutually perpendicular to each other. Very simple. And then you need some way to get this particle out of this structure so that you can do some experiments with the help of that. So that is what we call as a picture of a cyclotron in our head. So the places through which we apply the electric field, we design them in the shape of these. Actually they are nothing but like a biscuit box. You buy biscuits, the circular boxes are there. You cut it into two pieces and you will get one D on one side and another D on one side, hollow from within. In the middle you place a source of particle which you want to accelerate, say alpha particle. And it will get emitted, and because of the presence of magnetic field, it will start spiraling into a circular path, and whenever it will cross from one D to another, you accelerate it and its radius goes on increasing and the frequency stays the same, so you don't need to worry about changing the frequency again and again, and you are able to achieve the task which you wanted to achieve. So this is the simple physics part of it. Next please. So you know what Lorentz did? After thinking about it, he created a prototype device. छोटा जैसा cyclotron बना और उसका पेटेंट करवाया. 1934 में he had a patent. पेटेंट करवाने का मतलब क्या होता है? That you say that this is what I have discovered. Secondly, if you want to earn some kind of a profit out of it, you can sell it also. But Lorentz didn't earn anything out of it. He wanted more and more people to actually use this idea, and very many cyclotrons actually emerged as a result of that only, because there was no price tag attached to the idea itself. And what I just described for you in few words earlier, that has been done here. So when prototype was to be produced, Lawrence actually produced a prototype which had a diameter of 10 centimeter. 10 centimeter diameter का मतलब होता है 4 इंच। 4 इंच का मतलब होता है इतना सा डायल। इतना छोटी जैसी मशीन उसने बनाई, उसमें सब कुछ था, मैग्नेट था, डीज थी, एक्सेलरेटिंग के लिए पोटेंशियल भी लगा हुआ था उसमें, और खर्चा कितना आया? $25. Actually, IFET is celebrating this year as the birth centenary of Professor H.S. Hans, who created or who actually got that kind of a cyclotron in Punjab University. And I have a kind of a dream in my mind which I want to share with you. Can any student think of doing a project where he or she is able to build a cyclotron which is of the same size as was built by Lawrence? I think it will be a wonderful undergraduate project. Can I have water? Okay. So this is a wonderful way of doing it. Lawrence ने इसके लिए कितने पैसे खर्च करे उस वक्त? Only $25. Try to see the amount of money which was spent to see this idea into or giving it a practical shape. Thank you. I hope you are understanding what is happening and what a wonderful story it is emerging out to be. And see, with that device, he was able to produce a particle of 80,000 electron volts. That means 80 kilo electron volts. That small device was able to actually accelerate things to that order. छोटा मोटा न्यूक्लियर रिसर्च का काम करने के लिए काफी था. So next please, कितना बड़ा नजर आ रहा था वो? Let us try to have a look at that. But एक बार क्या होता है, साइंस पे जब कुछ चीजें होने लगती हैं ना, तो बड़े लोग उसके ऊपर शक भी रखते हैं कि ये होना नहीं है तो गपशप मार रहे हैं और इसका क्या फायदा होने वाला है. Albert Einstein was one of the persons who actually made a remark. और वो रिमार्क वैसा ही था जैसे मैंने आपको कहा ना, भाई मेरी पिंग पोंग बॉल खो गई है सारी धरती पर, उसको ढूंढना है तो क्या करेंगे? And he very mockingly said, you see, it is like shooting birds in the dark in a country where there are only a few birds. पे आपको क्या सक्सेस मिलेगी? सक्सेस के चांसेस तो बहुत कम है. इतना बड़ा आदमी ये रिमार्क कर रहा है. I think person like me would have got discouraged. यार बड़ा आदमी बोल रहा है तो ठीक ही बोल रहा होगा. But it was not so in the case of Lawrence. He kept on working on that particular idea. Next please. उसके बाद उनका जो नेक्स्ट साइक्लोट्रॉन बना वो 27 इंच का था डाया उसका. 27 इंच कितना हुआ? अगर आप 4 इंच को माइंड में रखें तो लगभग 8 times. But making it 8 times made it so huge. See, look at it. It was as big as the size of a person standing in front of him. Next please. But this is 4.5 inch cyclotron. Imagine करो आप, कितना छोटा था ये. और this is the picture which actually Lawrence sent for his patent application. And this was the prototype which he had. And this is from where the idea of big science around cyclotrons actually started. Small steps, small ideas, but patience, persistence, hard work. These are the, और ये किसने बनाया? One of his students created this. His name was Livingstone. He created this in a time, and he actually wrote his PhD thesis also on it. And he started working on that 27-inch cyclotron also. PhD thesis लिखा, उसके बाद उसकी report आई, and what we wanted was कि वाइवा हो जाए. अब वायवा में जब गए तो लिविंगस्टन was so much involved in the technological and technical things of the device itself that वायवा में बिल्कुल बेचारा जीरो आंसर ही दिए, उसने कुछ नहीं हुआ। और वो जो पीएचडी वायवा लेने वाला आया था उसने कहा कि कोई बात नहीं, जब मैंने आपका काम देखा है, आपने ये काम किया है, इसलिए मैं आपको पीएचडी वायवा में पास कर देता हूँ। So these are some very interesting stories, you know, which happen on the way. Next, please. So now you can see that this is actually a 60-inch electron. ये यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ कैलिफोर्निया बर्कले में काम करते थे लिविंगस्टन, वहाँ पे एक लॉरेंस म्यूजियम, लॉरेंस हॉल ऑफ साइंस बना हुआ है. It is a kind of a scene there. And in this 60-inch electron, in 1939, we could see that how a cyclotron actually works. And we are actually trying to see a beam of light coming out of this machine. But you will say these must have been particles. Why we are seeing this beam of light? That's another question which comes to our mind. And the answer to that actually lies in the fact that this particle, which is having very high energy, when it passes through the atmosphere, it ionizes it and creates this kind of a bluish light. And that is how we were able to see that yes, it is working. Next, please. So, if you are very keen to see that how cyclotrons have progressed, here is a link. You can search it by cyclotron generation, and you will be able to see that आज दुनिया में कितनी जगह पे different continents में कितने accelerators हैं. Next, please. Let me also tell you that in Asia we have number of cyclotrons. One of the cyclotrons is situated in Indore. This is one of the best cyclotrons which India has got, Indus 1 and Indus 2. And another cyclotron is in Delhi, which is Inter-University Accelerator Center, New Delhi. The proposal of this was given to Indira Gandhi by Professor Hans. But when they met Indira Gandhi, after 2 days of that meeting, Indira Gandhi was assassinated in 1984. And it was decided that it will not be planned in Chandigarh, but it will be taken to Delhi because Punjab was at that time unstable. Then we also have another interesting place in Calcutta, which is called Saha Institute of Nuclear Physics, where we have variable energy cyclotron. We have 2 cyclotrons actually there, which are working these days. Next, please. In fact, Calcutta is also known as City of Cyclotrons because of this facility. And the man who actually created that is this great person, Meghnad Saha. I think he was a person who deserved a Nobel Prize for his discovery of what is known as a principle in astronomy, Saha's ionization formula. In fact, it is this formula which led to, people say, modern astrophysics itself. And he was a great person, great son of India, I would say. These days you are hearing about, that we will connect together all the rivers around in the country. He was the person who actually was responsible for giving this idea. That whenever floods come in a river, why not transport it to those areas where the water scarcity is there? And now Government of India is actually thinking about that also. He was one of the rare personalities who entered politics also. And he won an election in the first election of the country in 1952 as an independent candidate, and he was elected. And he was, very vocal about the usage of science in development of the country itself. Next, please. One of the earliest cyclotrons was created by one of the students of Professor Saha. His name is St.Bede Chaudhary. He was the one who created, and he in fact started doing it before independence and tried to see how tragedies happen. Second World War started. They had asked for some equipment from USA, and that equipment was lost on the way itself. So they had to wait for another 10 years then to create a cyclotron itself. And today we have, and he had a training with Lawrence himself before he ventured on that kind of a task. And this is when it was first of all created in 1950. And to actually inaugurate that institute, which we now call as the Saha Institute of Nuclear Research, Juliet Curie was invited to inaugurate that. अगर आज होता ना तो हम किसी politician को बुलाते. But look at these people. Brought a Nobel Prize winner to inaugurate that facility to inspire others also. Next, please. Now comes the story of Professor H.S. Hans. Professor Hans was a student of Professor Gill, P.S. Gill, Pyara Singh Gill, in Aligarh Muslim University. And he, together with Professor Gill, created on the university campus a small cyclotron, but it was not of the kind which Lawrence had built. It was actually a Cockcroft-Walton type particle accelerator, and it was built in 1958. And one of the papers was published as a result of that. ये काम करने के बाद क्या हुआ? प्रोफेसर हंस को बुलावा आया कि भैया अमेरिका आओ, हम आपको पोस्ट डॉक्टरल फेलोशिप देते हैं, you can come and work here. So he went there, but he didn't land in Ernest Lawrence lab, but he landed in another lab which was in Rochester, and they also had a cyclotron. And what this man discovered was that they are shutting that cyclotron down and they want to create a higher energy cyclotron. तो इन्होंने देखा कि उसको ना dismantle कर रहे हैं. So he went to Professor Fulbright there and requested him, can you please give this cyclotron to us in India? Huge machine to be transported from USA to India. And look at the man, he had no position anywhere. कहीं नौकरी नहीं थी बनने के बाद. ये फिर अपने गुरुजी के पास गया, प्यारा सिंह जी के पास, यार मेरे को नौकरी दिला दोगी और मैं वहाँ ये साइक्लोट्रॉन लाना चाहता हूँ. So he got him a job in Kurukshetra University. And these cyclotrons, big crates, landed in Kurukshetra University. और कुरुक्षेत्र यूनिवर्सिटी में जब ये लैंड किए तो इसने कहा मुझे जगह दोगे, इसको मुझे बनाना है. And they said हमारे पास जगह नहीं. So what he did was, he actually got a job in Punjab University, transported whole of that equipment to Punjab University itself. That was in 1966. It took him 10 years to reassemble that machine. So in 1976, that machine was actually reassembled. You are going to see that in a movie which will be shown to you after this lecture itself. But look at the persistence of this man. He was a very tall man. I have met him. Very nice Jhangi, he was Punjabi. Jhangi थे वो. उनकी पंजाबी में बातचीत करने का लहजा भी बड़ा अलग ही था. And let's go to the next slide, please. IAPT actually also honored him with a citation, and he was actually one of the founding presidents of Indian Association of Physics Teacher also. Next, please. अभी देखो आप इंडिया कहाँ स्टैंड करता है. मैग्नेट्स की ज़रूरत है हमको, और मैग्नेट्स को चलाने के लिए बहुत बिजली की ज़रूरत पड़ती है. और उस बिजली के लिए ही हमको बहुत इंतज़ाम खर्चा करना पड़ता है. So what people have done now, they have actually created what we call as superconducting magnets, in which the coils are superconductors, in which if we pass current, no energy is wasted. That current can pass through it forever. And India actually was given the responsibility to supply to CERN about 2,000 such magnets. And I talked about that Indus project. There we have created this, and there was a stage when every month 30 super magnets were actually flown to CERN itself. This is where the international collaboration in big science actually comes up. Next, please. So ये है प्रोफेसर हंस, और ये इनके स्टूडेंट हैं प्रोफेसर आई.एम. गोविल. मैं इनको कभी नहीं भूलता, क्योंकि जब भी इनसे पूछते थे आपका नाम क्या है तो ये बोलते थे आई.एम. गोविल. तो लोग ये नहीं समझते थे कि आई और एम इनका नाम है और उसका मतलब था इंद्रमणि को भी. Okay, but he was also responsible for working with Professor Hans to establish this. From 1966 to 1976, their team was not able to publish even a single paper. They were, single-mindedly focusing on raising this machine here. Next, please. Now, where are the cyclotrons being used? And I think I am at the end of my lecture itself. One of the very important outcomes of this is causing nuclear reactions. So what is the meaning of that? Can I produce nuclear isotopes with the help of these machines? And these nuclear isotopes with small half-lives can be used for treating cancer. Punjab University has been collaborating with PGI for producing these kinds of radioisotopes itself. और ये बहुत बड़ी contribution रही है इस cyclotron की in producing these radioisotopes. Let me tell you a very interesting story in between. That when Lawrence created his machine, they were knowing that we are also able to create charged particles. His brother was actually an oncologist. Oncologists are the people who actually treat cancer. And they found that their mother has been detected with some kind of a cancer. And people had started saying that she is going to die in 6 months. So his brother and he took a decision that we are going to use this radiation on her. Imagine देखो कैसे लोग काम करते हैं, कितने risk भी लेते हैं लोग. And what they found was that she was completely cured. And she lived longer than Lawrence himself. Lawrence died before her. This is a very interesting part of the story itself. So, we have been able to use it as an X-ray machine also. जैसे जो मेरे पास radioisotopes होते हैं, many a times I can use them in the industry for scanning big sheets. Another very interesting output of that. And also we can, find the usage of these very energetic particles to create new kinds of materials also. और वो material science का हिस्सा बन जाते हैं. So you go to medicine, you go to chemistry, you go to material science, you find that cyclotrons are very, very useful. And that is why industrial cyclotrons are also built these days. Another very interesting part of it, atom bomb बनाना है. Atom bomb बनाने के लिए हमको क्या करना पड़ता है? Enrichment of the जो fuel है उसकी करनी पड़ती है. We know that uranium comes in two isotopes. One is 234 I think and other is 239. U-234 is fissionable and U-239 is not fissionable. So we want to enrich it so that it becomes more and more U-234. So what we do is, we take uranium, convert it into a gas, let these go through a cyclotron, accelerate it, and then use a mass spectroscope to separate those two and collect those isotopes separately. And this is something which is a classified, kind of a process. कि लोग ज़्यादा रिवील नहीं करते हैं किसी को, क्योंकि इससे एटम बॉम्ब बनाने का फ्यूल हमारे पास मिल जाएगा. So this is also one of the uses. In fact, when the first atom bomb was being made under Manhattan Project, Lawrence was part of that, and one full cyclotron was transported from Cambridge to that project to create enriched uranium-235, I think. Yeah, it was uranium-235. So this is one of the very interesting parts of the uses of the cyclotron itself. Next, please. So these are some of the references which I use for creating this talk for you. I hope you have enjoyed this story of a very interesting, big science. And next, please. Thanks for your kind attention. If you have any questions, you are most welcome to ask. You can come, take the mic. Yes? Raise your hand. Yeah. Anybody from here? Teachers? Okay, all right. Have you enjoyed the lecture or not?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember the names of the various people? Who was the person about whom I talked, who was able to create that or install that cyclotron there? What was his name? Yeah? Raise your hand. Let me see how many of you remember the name. Oh yes. Give her mic, please.
Sir, Lawrence.
Oh, at Chandigarh.
Sir, no, sir, that is
HS Hans. Okay, good. So that means you were in the talk. I am very happy to hear that. Anybody else? Any questions? If there are no questions, I don't want to between you and the movie which is going to be played now. I hope you will enjoy that also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Your lecture on cyclotron was insightful, informative, and engaging, and it provided us with a deeper understanding of the fascinating field of nuclear physics. Thank you, sir, and thank you for enlightening us with this new concept. For me, it was new concept of big science. Also, your insights on the history and development of cyclotron, as well as your analysis on its current applications, were invaluable to us. Once again, thank you, sir, for such a thought-provoking lecture. Now, we will be taking a short break, and after 15 minutes, we will be resuming with the movie and on-spot quiz session. The people who are present in the auditorium can have a look on the display exhibition which is displayed in the auditorium itself.